because the lack of knowledge regarding those facilities was quite prominent. As you can see that 90% of the surveyed entrepreneurs, they were not aware of the available support packages offered by the government. So this is not only regarding like support that announced by the federal government, the small provincial governments and local governments have also announced some support packages. For example, in Surkhet, Karnali province's government was giving technical support up to rupees 1 lakh for the entrepreneurs, and none of the entrepreneurs that, though they were they were operating in Surkhet, they did not know about this support package offered by the government. So based on these issues, so we can kind of detect a pattern, how they are coping and what has emerged. So this kind of inferences. So among that, the number one, so I think a lot of literature, this business entrepreneurial literature and export related literature also says that relatively large and export oriented businesses are rather comparatively more resilient, and our survey also reflects that the companies that are relatively large and that have a good market overseas, they said that they might bounce back a little quicker than the ones that did not. So obviously, larger companies, they have larger enterprises, they have reserved to help them ride out whatever the issues, the current problems are. So that help them cushion from any financial fallout. The smaller companies, smaller businesses, they do not have that reserve, so they are quite cash strapped and have to. So obviously that works against them. So again, the biggest concern showed expressed by these enterprises was that managing cash flow. Like if they run out of the money they have right now, how are they going to pay for the rent, pay for the wages, and even for the vendor repayment, like pay for the raw materials and etc. Another concern was, a prominent concern expressed was about regarding non-availability of raw material due to restricted mobility. But I think that might be managed as of now, because mobility has gone back to like relatively it's almost to normal. So, and then again, so their first line of defense was to lay off the workers. So when now they are worried that when the things go back to normal and demand picks up, they may not have good workforce with them to work for them. So it's like a vicious circle over there. So, and another issue, so I think since we're talking about gendered, so women entrepreneurs, so another prominent issue that came up was their women's care duty has increased due to the lockdown and pandemic. So they haven't been able to devote as much time to their business that they could have had the things been normal. So their business is not doing well and they do not have enough time to work on their business. So they're like double whammy for them. And okay, and then, but despite all this, whatever negative issues that has come up, there are some positive something positive has also emerged. It's like women entrepreneurs, they have been quite innovative during the pandemic, as they have expanded their portfolio. Like those who were engaged in making food items, they have expanded their items they used to make and ventured into new items that, for example, frozen food like frozen momos and momos wrappers by the food items manufacturers. And some of the entrepreneurs who work in textile sector, they have increased their, so they have also ventured into manufacturing masks, and some have even started to export at a premium price as well. And so, and then the last emerging pattern that we see is more entrepreneurs, like all the consumers have done, are opening up to digital commerce. As 56% of our respondents said that they sought e-commerce platforms for sales. I mean, they did transaction as well as promotion through these digital platforms during the pandemic. So based on these surveys, based on the findings of the survey, we can, this is kind of our inferences, like what has the major takeaways that we can, major takeaways from this survey was that, now I think this is not something new, like we have found, or it kind of aligns with, already aligns with the literature and all the research regarding women entrepreneurship have found that women have limited access to information that impedes their ability to business. So in this regard also, this is kind of nuanced, but it's nuanced yet kind of uh, obvious as well, that women entrepreneurs, in comparison to men, they do not have the access to social networks that men have. So they're kind of not even, like, it's not a deliberate practice, but even in spite of that, they are excluded from those information channels. So they do not, they, so information channels, so they lose out a lot. So how to make the information accessible could be one of the ways that we need to look into. And then another, it's also obvious that women entrepreneurs find access to finance bit difficult. So this issue needs to be looked into deeper, because why do women entrepreneurs have difficulty in accessing finance? Uh, is it because of collateral based system in Nepali financial market, like lending market, or are the women entrepreneurs not credit worthy, or what is not credit worthy, or even despite the even a lot, there are quite a few schemes for helping women entrepreneurs access finance. For example, even Rashtra Bank's guidelines on providing subsidized loans to women entrepreneurs, it looks, on paper, it looks quite convenient. Like they do not ask a lot of things from these women entrepreneurs, but has the access been, like, what has its impact been? It does not, what has it been impacted? And still women entrepreneurs find accessing capital difficult. So maybe that's like, who will take the risk? Why the banks are, we need to look into why the banks are not willing to take risks on women entrepreneurs. All these things need to be studied more deeply so that better policy prescriptions can be prescribed. And the last one is most of the capacity, women entrepreneurs have been like trainings on skill training, capacity building. There have been a lot of those kind of trainings, but most of this focus on skill training, which is provided to the those entrepreneurs who are just starting. So there's but for the entrepreneurs that are already established, they need to provide some more other training, like for example, how to manage their businesses better, how to keep accounts, how to like how to increase their credit worthiness, and how to find markets abroad, and all those things like that. So I think it looks like all those uh, this there is some lacking in this area as well. So this is my final slide. So based on all our surveys and the reviews that we have done, so we have come up, so it looks like these are the areas that needs to be focused on. So first, the government policies, like government policies can look into, like I said in earlier slide, that relook at the existing lending mechanism, like what is depriving women entrepreneurs from access to financing. So besides that, this our discourse regarding finance mostly focuses on lending as credit finance only. So what about the equity finance? Maybe banks, profit-oriented banks, they are not willing to take risk. Someone has to take the risk when they are lending the money. So so banks are not willing, if banks are not willing to take the risk of financing the entrepreneur, so they can might, so what about so then government can step up and just absorb that risk, and maybe government can, instead of only focusing on credit based finances, government can launch a special vehicle, financing vehicle, that will invest equity investment in the business. So that way they can help grow these businesses, as well as provide them with capital as well. And one of the direct interventions that government can do is is prioritize women-owned businesses during public procurement. Like a lot of countries do that, even some states in the United States do that, like give some extra points for women-owned businesses during public procurement process. So that way they are helping the nurturing women entrepreneurs and providing them with a market. So, and then again, so as we talked in the last slide, so capacity building, maybe business chambers and associations can look into this, how to what kind of capacity building works can they do, and for the women entrepreneurs. And for this also, I think it should be noted that they need to look beyond their own network. So like those women who do not have access to this network, so they need to try to include them in their network as well to make this effective. And lastly, this access to information, it's the, I would say, lowest hanging fruit that like you can do, anyone can do, is like help help disseminate the relevant information to the anyone who needs to know the information. Like so civil societies, business chambers, governments can work with each other on that. Especially now that due to social media platforms, dissemination of information, the access to information is quite easy, but just you need to have get the right algorithm, like to reach the right person. So this three, so these are the basic takeaways, a snapshot of the survey and what we find and our policy recommendations. And I hope that we will have more the discussants, the experts among our discussants, and all the participants will maybe help add more stuff, more insights into this during the session. And with saying that, thank you so much everyone for listening to me. Thank you. So now over to you, Mona.
Thank you, Diksha, for clearly presenting us with the survey findings, along with some very concrete recommendations. And of course, indeed, information is power, and women businesses need to have access to such business-related information. Also, despite challenges faced by women entrepreneurs, they have also been able to make use of opportunities, as you've rightly said. Just to add, the team members of this project include Dr. Dhruvesh Chandaregmi, who was the project director, and Diksha and Pragati Koirala were researchers, and Alabhya Dahal, Nina Shastra, and Pravina Mahajan were also very instrumental. So thank you all to the entire team. Let's move this discussion forward to our three panelists. Let me introduce you to them. I begin with Ms. Rita Simha, who is the president at FWE and has recently also been appointed as the chairperson of the Women Entrepreneurship Development Committee at FNCCI. She owns and manages Ama Impacts and Ama Crafts, which have been operating for 3.5 decades. Her companies are involved in manufacturing, exporting, and retailing of hand-woven clothes, cashmere and pashmina knitwear, and items made from aloe fiber. She's constantly involved in issues related to women, economic empowerment through sustainable development. And from my own experience, she has been an advocate for women's entrepreneurship from very long time. And in this tenure of hers, she has done even more so. We also have Ms. Shobha Guru, who is the Vice President of FNCSI and Managing Director of Himalayan Decor Rugs. Established in 1993, her company produces exclusive hand-knotted carpets and exports them all over the world. Ms. Guru was 2018 alumni of the Australian Awards course on women trading globally. Last but not the least, we have Dr. Gunakar Bhatta, who is the Executive Director at Nepal Rashtra Bank and is leading the research department of the bank and is also the bank's spokesperson. Dr. Bhatta has represented Nepal in various international forums and has been contributing to academics and development. And he has also served the Revenue Advisory Board of the Ministry of Finance and contributed on various occasions to the preparation of the economic survey. A gold medalist in MBA from Tribhuvan University, Dr. Bhatta also holds PhD in economics from Wayne State University, Michigan, and a master's degree in economics from Williams College, USA. So with this very vibrant panelists, let us move to the round one of the discussion. As I said, we'll have round one and round two So in round one, we take stock of the impact of the COVID on women's businesses, and we have allocated 5 minutes each for our three speakers. With Rita ji, so we also know that EFWIN has been very instrumental in conducting impact assessments, and it has done so recently as well. What has been the impact of the pandemic on the members of EFWIN and the role of the association in mitigating the challenges faced by its members? Rita ji?
Thank you, Dr. Mona. This COVID-19 pandemic was a huge setback, especially for women entrepreneurs. First of all, women faced, because of the lockdown, women faced cash flow management. And due to this problem, like women who had availed loans from the banks could not repay them. And due to a shortage of cash, they could not pay their workers, they could not retain them, the workers itself. And of course, like access to finance is a big challenge to women. And especially during the pandemic, like women needed finance to restart and revive their businesses. And this was a huge problem. And then as the president of the organization, what I felt, including me, there was a panic attack, sort of, people were just depressed because the business had come to a complete halt, and there was no way that we could do anything about it. So there was even women were getting depressed. And then immediately after the lockdown, we started calling the women in the districts, and we were asking them about their what they were doing, and listening to them. That brought us more now fear, because we had to do something. So luckily, what happened was immediately after the lockdown, our partner, Center for International Enterprise Development, they were arranged a Zoom meeting for us. Then we realized through this medium, we could contact our members, in the districts as well as in the center. And then we started having meetings, and then we were planning now the way forward, And fortunately, our partners were supporting us from 2012, FCA Finland. They supported us throughout the pandemic. And then, of course, USAID through Tayar Nepal, they gave us a project called, Women, Revitalizing Women's Business Amidst COVID-19 Pandemic. And in that, even like you, Dr. Mona, as a knowledge partner, emerge. You helped us design a holistic well-being training for the women, and this really helped us to really gain our confidence back. And then people were more now confident and resilient in again carrying out their businesses. And of course, through this project, we also did our online marketing training, where 18 women were selected, and they marketed their products through tulo.com. And this was a moral boost for the women. And at least in this pandemic, in this lockdown, we could at least market our products. The products were, of course, essential items like masks and foodstuffs. But even then, this was a big boost for us. And then again, we were doing a lot of business management trainings, like digital literacy for the women who are in the districts, and who could create their own email. And this really excited the women, because they really had to depend on their children to create an email, but now they could do on their own. And then, of course, we started doing financial literacy. And even we were talking to the banks, because of course the government has come out with subsidized loans and collateral-free loans to the women, but they are not. The women complain that they have not got the loans. So we are just trying to, bridge the gap between the banks and the women entrepreneurs. And when we had the MOU signed with the banks, we questioned them, why are the women not getting the loans? And they said, this is the public money, so women have to come out with a business plan, a cash flow, and then only we can avail the loan to them. So this we thought was a big lesson to all the women. And so now we are giving them trainings on financial literacy, how to make a simple business plan, and even a cash flow statement. And this has really helped the women now to regain their confidence and even carry on with their businesses.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you.
I've answered your questions.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Ritaji. It's such fantastic work that the FWIN is doing and continues to do so for the empowerment of its members. And as you rightly said, I think what was most interesting is this whole transition from the brick and mortar way of doing business to going digital has been quite a learning. We have Sobaji now, who's the Vice President at FNCSI. And perhaps, Sobaji, you could share with us how FNCSI has been addressing the needs of its members in this pandemic.
Thank you, Dr. Mona, for the question. Actually, FNCSI is the apex body of MSME sectors entrepreneurs. So the COVID has affected all of the entrepreneurs, which in our organization, there are lots of small business enterprises are involving. So mostly affected all these entrepreneurs. So lots of challenges, lots of risks they have to burden on this time. So we, as an organization executives, we could not stop to keep quiet at that moment. We during the pandemic period where there was lockdown, our FNCSI executives visited, met with our concerned ministers like Minister of Finance, Minister of Industry and Commerce, Ministry of Women and Children, like Nepal Rashtra Bank, governors, to all of them with for the requesting for the provide stimulate package to the entrepreneurs so they can sustain their business after the pandemic and they can restart, they can overcome from the pandemic. So later on, the government also, they heard our voices as well. So after the monetary policy came, so government has a little bit subsidized the loans to the small, which is especially focused to the MSME sector. So they have subsidized some loans for women entrepreneurs as well and all the MSME sectors. So this is the one achievement we did in the pandemic period, I think. And another thing, in lockdown period, all industries were they were closed, and after 1 month later, government allowed to open the industries. But there was a problem that there was no vehicle movement over there. So people, the workers, they cannot go to the factories to the work. So we requested to the government to allow the passes for our entrepreneurs. So government, they allowed us to issue the passes for the workers who can go to the factories and they can work at the factories. So these things we have done in the pandemic period. These are the things. So other issues are the same. The small entrepreneurs who are actually the national backbone of the national economy, they were really affected by this COVID-19, and we tried from our side to discuss with the government for the advocacy and everything. Thank you. We did like this.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sobaji, for sharing that information with us. I think there will be some questions as to understand what kind of subsidized loans have there been for the MSMEs, etc. There has been some very interesting interaction in the chat box that I can see. Please continue to do that. It's wonderful. Thank you, Diksha, for also responding to those queries. Now we have Dr. Bhatta with us, who will perhaps tell us more about the financial schemes. So the question to you, Dr. Bhatta, is what are some of the banking and financial schemes or provisions that have been put in place that aim to support the women-owned or the women-led businesses? And also, how is the utilization of such schemes and provisions? Dr. Bhatta?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me first congratulate and extend my sincere thanks to Saudi for organizing this event and inviting me to this seminar. It's really an interesting topic, relevant issue, how to promote the women's entrepreneurship in Nepal. That's really a challenge, and that's the challenge for the government as well as to the central bank here in Nepal. Let me, before directly going to your question, let me briefly recast the finding of our survey, what we did in the 2 rounds, the impact of the pandemic, the COVID-19 in Nepal. Well, if we see in July, the level of the transaction, level of the turnover, the production was largely disrupted because of the lockdown. At that time, the number of the forms that we took in our sample, around 700 forms were included in the sample survey. And the level of the transaction, level of the production at that time was only 29% compared to the pre-pandemic level. And the follow-up survey that we conducted in November, December 2020, it showed that there has been improvement and the level of the transaction, turnover, the production of the selected firms has gone up to 50%. And in July, the number of the firms, they were in full operation compared to the pre-pandemic level were only 4%. But now in December, the number stands at 54%. And the employment has largely been affected. In July, the level of the employment compared to the pre-pandemic level came down to 77%. And in December, it has gone up to 87%. And still 13% of the people compared to the pre-pandemic level, they have lost their jobs. And in our survey, what we did, directly we don't have any position relating to the women, but there are some sectors where women are largely involved. For example, the tourism, hotel, restaurant, education sector. So these sectors are largely affected. And how the central bank, through its monetary policy, it has been supporting the women entrepreneur. One of the major schemes that is provided by the central bank is the deprived sector loan facility. So the deprived sector lending facility is a compulsory arrangement whereby the banks and financial institutions are required to lend 5% of their loan to the deprived sector. And that also includes the marginalized people, women, and some other, the downtrodden families and the backward communities. And that is included under the deprived sector lending scheme. So that's one of the major schemes that has been there over the years, almost for a decade. And another major scheme that the central bank has introduced is the microfinance, the microfinance scheme, and that has been there in practice for decades, almost for 3 decades. They are through the rural development banks in the initial stage, and now there are a number of the microfinance institutions, and they are also serving to women through the microfinance, where the up to 300,000. No collateral is required. And previously there was a charge, there was kind of the allegation that they were charging higher interest, very, very high interest, that was around 22%, 20%. And then the central bank, through the monetary policy of this fiscal year, it has capped the interest rate to 15% that is given by the microfinance institutions. And another important scheme is the subsidized lending facility, that is the concessional loan, where there are 10 different categories. And among those 10 different categories, one of the category is directly directed towards the women entrepreneur, where women entrepreneur are given 6% interest subsidy, and they can start their business, and up to 1.5 million they can borrow from the banks. Previously, there was also some kind of suspicion, doubt, and banks were also reluctant to provide this subsidized lending targeted to women. But of late, it has been increased significantly. Yeah, I can share with you data here, just a figure that in this fiscal year, a significant amount has been disbursed under this category, additional 23 billion. So until mid-July 2020, just 6 months ago, the outstanding loan to the women entrepreneur that was under the subsidized category, where 6% interest subsidy was given, only 4 billion was outstanding in mid-July 2020. 4 billion, and now it stands at 27 billion. So there has been significant progress in this fiscal year. And the number of women, they have been benefited. So if we see the data in mid-July, it was only around 7,000, and now the number stands 30,000. So 30,000, additional 23,000 women, they have been benefited in the last 7 months. So this is the significant progress. Nevertheless, there are again, the complaints that the easy access to this facility has not been given. So we have been persuading banks. There is a kind of the moral suasion continuously, frequently. The central bank is giving moral suasion to the banks that you should follow this. And there has been some target, the targets have been given that each and every branch, they should give, they should provide this targeted lending. And on top of that, the refinance facility that significantly central bank restructured in this fiscal year. So the large number of women also, they have been benefited, around 34,000, not only women, but all sorts of firms who have borrowed up to 1.5 million. They have been facilitated through the refinance facility scheme in the last 7 months. So there has been some progress compared to the previous year, but still much more is to be done. And there are some other PT programs and where the women entrepreneur they can. And another important thing we have to keep in mind here, that the central bank has directed banks and financial institutions to spend 1% of their profit in the corporate social responsibility. And of that 1% allocated for the corporate social responsibility spending, 5% of that 1% should be directed towards the women financial literacy, to promote the financial literacy of the women. And again, the digital banking that we have been asking banks to promote, and banks have been also using that network to promote the financial literacy, and they have been also bringing more women in the financial net. So these are some of the specific programs, and we believe that we can collaborate and we can get your feedback. And every year when we design the monetary policy, when we design the financial policy, we can also include on that. And additionally, the central bank is the advisor to the government. So before the preparation of the budget of the government, we provide the pre-budget report to the government. We assess the macroeconomic situation. We also assess the sectoral situation, sector-specific issues. And in that sector-specific issue also, we can bring in more issues, and we can report to the government before the budget comes out for the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Dr. Bhattal, for that elaborative information that you have provided to many of us who may not have had access to such information. It's very interesting to see the data of the Nepal Rashtra Bank's study on the impact of the COVID on businesses. However, I'm sure in the next surveys, we would have some kind of focused eye on the impact of such, pandemics or whatever impact studies you do from a gendered lens, so that we can get such kind of concrete responses and findings rather than just making some inferences. And thank you.
Well, that's a candid suggestion. And we also thought when we were designing the survey, in July 2020, it was a very difficult time, and how to engage our staff, and then through the the email or the internet, we got those responses. It was a very tough time, but we also have some kind of realization on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think acknowledging these new ideas and these new ways of doing things is also very much appreciated, and that's how I think we all should move ahead. We have the second round of discussion, where after taking stock of what has really happened, particularly focusing on women businesses, we would now want to discuss about so what do we do next. And with that, I would also suggest that we stick to maybe 4 to 5 minutes with each speaker. So again, back to Ritaji. So how does FWIN intend to work with its members although we've seen that FWIN has been doing so well. How do you see it in terms of solving their existing business-related problems, because the problems still do exist? And are there any concrete recommendations for the government authorities as well as other stakeholders? Ritaji? Your microphone is muted.
Sorry for that. Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, we are doing a lot of programs, and now especially with the support from Asia Foundation through Visa, we are doing a lot of trainings for women now. It's a virtual training, but this is for their business management trainings. And like I said, digital literacy, financial literacy, and like we are even organizing like capacity building trainings. And like, because, like I feel every challenges brings opportunities. And I think this is a big opportunity for us to connect with our members. Like before we used to say, like, in the far western, like we can't reach there, the women can't come here. But now there's no excuse, because with the click of the button, you are linked with them. So this has been a real opportunity for us, and we are providing a lot of trainings to them. And of course, with our, like geographical location, because of the low infrastructure development, even in internet, Wi-Fi, the women can't avail of these developments. But what we have done is now we are giving them free of charge recharge cards so that they can come for the trainings. And we are providing them a lot of trainings on that. And we have now even organized Friday motivational talk, where women were like successful women who have done good successful businesses. They come and talk to the women so that they get motivated, So we are providing all those trainings as well. And through the project, with Tayar Nepal, we also did a disaster risk management trainings, where businesses, how to continue with the businesses, and how to do our businesses during the disaster, how to give disaster preparedness trainings we are providing with our members. And even like occupational and safety health trainings we provided to our women and their workers. So these are all the trainings we've been providing to the women. And of course, now what we feel is, like, because of this lockdown and social distancing, I think online marketing is the platform for marketing. And because if through ILO support, we have registered a e-portal site, winbiz.com. So now we are on the process of revitalizing this website, where women can market through this nationally as well as internationally. And of course, there are a lot of work to be done when we come to the online market. The products have to be packaged, labeled. So the packaging and labeling, I think now the government should help on these field, because the packaging materials are very expensive. So if government would subsidize, on the raw materials that is being imported, then maybe we could compete in the international markets as well. And of course, in these difficult times, of course, we need the support from our partners and even the government and the stakeholders. What I feel is Nepal is very rich in resources, and as a federation, we've been represented in the 50 districts, and ultimately we will go in the 77 districts there. And because the resources are wasted, now the government should, invest in technology, innovations, and provide trainings on these, like even in agriculture, if you've been interested, if you could provide them simple tools where they have knowledge to grow what is grown in which area, So these are the things I think the government should should focus on. And I think women, they are very resilient. We are now, in spite of the pandemic, we are continuing with their businesses, and we are moving slowly but steadily. And with a little push from our partners, stakeholders, and organizations, of course, we can to move ahead. And another thing, what we are doing is, because since FWIN is advocating with the government, on issues related to women, like even now we are training our chapter, provincial representatives, from the 7 provinces, so that because this is a federal system now, and the local government has the funds and resources, so how to approach these to meet the stakeholders and take their issues to the local government and even get support from the local government. So in that way, we are training them on this leadership, good governance, and how to strengthen the organization. And at the central level, we are doing the same thing, and in the provincial level, we are giving the trainings to the provincial representatives also.
Great. Thank you, Ritaji. To our participants here, this is really great information. So we know where to go now. If you haven't joined FWIN, join FWIN and get all these facilities that the organization is providing, so that we can all have one voice as well. Thank you, Ritaji, for that. Sovaji, I think we have a similar, type of a question for you here on how to move ahead. But since you also represent the FNCSI, I mean, how could FNCSI and the other private sector organizations collaborate in creating a gender-responsive entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Yeah.
Sovaji?
Yeah, Monaji.
Yes.
Actually, the organizations who are similar like our organizations like FWIN, FNCCI chambers, who are advocating for betterment of the entrepreneurs. Their objectives are same. So if we go together, it would be very, very fruitful. There is saying unity is the power. So if we have unity, then we can do any work. So especially if we go with collaborative approach, like working together, going to the government with for the policy formation, good policy formation for the entrepreneurs, and acts to be implemented, because there are lots of policies which is friendly for the entrepreneurs, but that is not implemented. So if our voices are the same, we are strong, then we can force to the government to apply in also in the acts. So that's why I think going together is the strength. And another thing is, there is also saying in my last words, I want to say that there is always bright morning after the dark dark night. So pandemic was the dark night for us, and there is always the very good future for all entrepreneurs as well, because lots of opportunities are also coming, and we are being in new normal life. That's why collaborative approach, unity is the strength. That is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sovaji. As you rightly said, I mean, going together is the only way ahead. And with FNCSI focusing on small and cottage industries, and FWIN focusing more on women, I think that would be a really good combination as well. So thank you very much.
Just I want to say you that in our FNCSI also, we have Women Entrepreneurs Committee, which has 66 district chapters, and we have more than 11,000 women entrepreneurs over there. So during the lockdown, we also communicate with the this virtual technology, using virtual technology, that how they are coping in pandemic period. So that was also very the technology which also helps us to know about the problems of and challenges facing by our women entrepreneurs. That's why we had to go to the government for the betterment of their problems, to address their problems. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Shobhaji, for that information as well.
Yeah.
Dr. Bhatta, one last question to you in this second round of discussion is, it's phenomenal to see that the number of women entrepreneurs or businesses who had obtained that really flexible loan with a very concessional interest rate just whooped up with the pandemic. But the other question is, what prospects now do you see for the upcoming banking and financial policies that hold in helping women-led or women businesses build back better?
That's really an important issue and a challenging question that we have to address. There are women living in those societies in high poverty incidence districts in the Karnali, in Far Western, even in Tarai, where women have to go for hours to collect firewood and almost 1 to 2 hours to fetch water, drinking water. Still there are those issues. So we have to start from those societies. So those the downtrodden society, the backward community, how to uplift their living standard, how to enhance their financial access. That's really a challenge. So the central bank has directed all the banks to open their branches in the local levels. And out of 753 local levels, already in 749 local levels, there have been the presence of the commercial banks. Only in 4 local levels, the commercial bank haven't opened their branches, but they are in the process. But one, the hidden fact or what the camouflage here is that those 753 local levels are the previous BDCs were almost 4,000 BDCs. So that fact is hidden somewhere. So we are, ignoring that fact. So how to penetrate the financial access to those communities now at the world level? So that's a big challenge. So the digital banking, either through digital banking, either through the brick and mortar, even though the brick and mortar based banking, that is not efficient, that's not cost effective, and that's a challenge for banks because they also have to sustain. So how to penetrate the digital banking, and for that we need to promote the financial literacy to the women entrepreneur, and supporting the women entrepreneur, ensuring the minimum support price for their product, and that's one of the important the options that we can explore. And another, the marketing of the guarantee of the marketing of their products. So these are the things where we have to start from the backward community, and then really we can transform the society and the women's entrepreneurial ecosystem we can develop.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatta. It's very interesting to see that since you are the spokesperson also of the Central Bank of Nepal, to see that vision that you hold, and we hope with such leadership and such dedication, we would have such more interesting, focused, dedicated programs to enhance women's entrepreneurship in particular. Also, when you said that the Rashtra Bank had such policies of putting in place, say the deprived sector loan, saying that you have to have so many percentage of your loan portfolio. You also had this dedicated thing of saying you have to have 1% or so of your profit towards CSR, and among that 5% or so, and among that again 1% of that should be dedicated to women's entrepreneurship. I think these are very these are some of the schemes that we all appreciate. I think the question about its implementation is something we can further discuss on. And now that we are all in this platform, I think we can work together to see how we can support each other in the different expertise that we have, so that we can help the government in building back better. Thank you to our distinguished panelists in the round of discussions. We have several questions here on the chat. We'll take them up slowly. One of them I saw towards the end was the question that Dr. Bhatta has already addressed. Please keep some of your questions alive in your minds. We will come back to them in our question and answer flow. For now, we have the organizers who would want to share a short video that displays how to register a business in Nepal and provides information on the support provided to women entrepreneurs by the government, such as what Dr. Bhatta said on concessions and tax exemptions. It's a short one, it's in Nepali, but I guess we will all enjoy it as it's very well animated. So, Diksha, shall we play the video?
Yeah, and just with a disclaimer that this is not the final version, so there might be some glitches there. Just a disclaimer. Okay.
Great. Any technical glitch?
No.
Okay. We cannot hear the sound.
Okay. Oh, just hold on.
अब तिमी त सबै
Now?
व्यवसाय यस सम्बन्धमा धेरै कुराको जानकारी र अनुभव पनि छ त्यसैले यस सम्बन्धमा मलाई केही सल्लाह अर्थी बुद्धि दिन्थ्यौ कि भनेर तिमीलाई सम्झेको नि ओहो निकै राम्रो विचार हो दिदी मैले थाहा पाएको
So can everyone hear the sound now?
Yeah, can you increase the volume, please?
Yeah, it's audible.
व्यवसाय दर्ता धेरै सञ्चार हुने पो हो कि होइन होइन त्यसो भनेर ढुक्क नहुनुहोस् यदि आफ्नो व्यापारलाई बढाएर निर्यात गर्ने चाहना छ भने दर्ता त गर्नै पर्दछ व्यवसाय दर्ता गरेपछि मात्र तपाईले राज्यले व्यवसाय भनेर चिन्नेछ अनि पो राज्यले दिने सुविधा पाउनुहुन्छ त जस्तै सरकारले महिला व्यवसायलाई प्रदेश सरकार वा स्थानीयद्वारा विभिन्न अनुदान वा प्राविधिक सहयोग उपलब्ध गराउँदछ तपाईको व्यवसाय दर्ता भएको छैन भने त तपाईले त्यस्तो केही सुविधा पाउनुहुन्न नि त त्यही त लौ लौ बहिनी अब भन त मैले मेरो व्यवसायलाई कसरी र कहाँ दर्ता गर्न पर्यो सबभन्दा पहिला वडा कार्यालयमा गएर दर्ता गर्नुहोस् तपाईले एउटा फारम भर्नुपर्छ फारमसँग आवश्यक केही दस्तावेज पनि पेश गर्न पर्छ जस्तै व्यवसाय धनीको नागरिकताको प्रमाणपत्र तपाईको कारखाना भएको जग्गाको लाल पूर्जाको प्रतिलिपि आदि यदि तपाईले आफ्नो व्यवसाय राखेको स्थान भाडामा लिनु भएको छ भने त्यस्तो जग्गा वा घर धनीसँग गरेको भाडाको करार पनि बुझाउन पर्छ ए अब वडामा मात्र दर्ता गरेर त हुने होला नि होइन तपाईले त पहिले व्यवसायलाई एकल साझेदारी उद्योगको रूपमा मात्र दर्ता गर्न हुने कि कम्पनीको रूपमा पनि दर्ता गर्ने त्यो पनि निर्णय लिनुपर्छ मतलब हेर्नुहोस् व्यवसायहरूको स्वामित्व विभिन्न किसिमका हुन सक्छन् तर हाम्रो जस्तो सानो व्यवसाय चाहिँ एकल वा साझेदारी स्वामित्वको उद्योगको रूपमा मात्र दर्ता गर्न सकिन्छ अथवा प्राइभेट कम्पनीको रूपमा पनि होइन यी दुईटामा के फरक छ नि प्राइभेट कम्पनी भएमा कम्पनीको स्वामित्व कम्पनीको सञ्चालक समितिमा हुन्छ साथै कम्पनीको नाफा वा नोक्सान कम्पनीको नै हुन्छ सञ्चालकको हुँदैन कम्पनी दर्ता गर्दा चाहिँ अलि धेरै नियमहरू पालना गर्न पर्छ जस्तै कम्पनीको विवरण पत्र प्रबन्ध पत्र र अरू जानकारीहरू कम्पनी रजिस्ट्रारको कार्यालयमा बुझाउनु पर्ने हुन्छ यसरी दर्ता भएमा कम्पनीको करको दायित्व पनि अलि कमै हुन जान्छ उद्योग दर्ता गर्न चाहिँ स्थानीय वा प्रादेशिक तहमा नै गर्न सकिन्छ 2076 मा जारी गरेको औद्योगिक व्यवसाय ऐन अनुसार केही सीमित संवेदनशील क्षेत्रका उद्योग बाहेक अरू सबै उद्योग प्रदेश अन्तर्गतको उद्योग पर्यटन वन तथा वातावरण मन्त्रालय मातहत दर्ता गर्न मिल्छ हाम्रो जस्तो सानो व्यवसायलाई भने घरेलु तथा साना उद्योग कार्यालयमा दर्ता गर्न पर्छ दर्ता गर्न एउटा निवेदन फारम बुझाउनु पर्छ फारममा आफ्नो व्यवसायको बारेमा जानकारी भर्नुपर्छ यो सँगै उद्योग धनीका नागरिकता प्रमाणपत्रको प्रतिलिपि उद्योग रहेको घरको जग्गाको जग्गा धनी प्रमाणपत्र बहालमा लिएको घर जग्गामा अवस्थित उद्योगलाई चाहिँ जग्गा धनीसँग गरेको करार र ठेगाना प्रमाणित गर्नका लागि बिजुली वा पानीको बिल बुझाउनु पर्छ साथै महिला उद्यमीहरूलाई सोही ऐन अनुसार कुनै पनि खाले उद्योग दर्ता गर्दा शुल्कमा 35% छुट मिल्छ साथै महिला स्वामित्व भएको उद्योगलाई औद्योगिक सम्पत्तिको खरिदमा दर्ता शुल्कमा 20% छुटको पनि व्यवस्था छ हो र अनि करमा दर्ता गर्न चाहिँ के गर्न पर्छ त तपाईले एउटा व्यावसायिक स्थायी लेखा नम्बर लिन पर्छ जसलाई छोटकरीमा बिजनेस प्लान भनिन्छ तपाईको व्यवसायको नाममा यसको लागि आन्तरिक राजस्व विभागको वेबसाइटमा अनलाइन ट्याक्स पोर्टलमा गएर आफ्नो व्यवसायको बारे जानकारी भर्नुपर्छ जस्तै दर्ता मिति, दर्ता नम्बर, दर्ता गरेको स्थान, सञ्चालक र शेयरधनीका बारे जानकारी भर्न पर्छ। यो सबै फारम भरेर पुष्टि गराउन चाहिँ राजस्व कार्यालयमा नै जान पर्छ। अनि तपाईको वार्षिक कारोबार रु 20 लाख भन्दा कम कि धेरै? छैन बहिनी त्यति त। रु 20 लाख भन्दा धेरै कारोबार भए त तपाईले भ्याटमा पनि दर्ता गराउनु पर्छ। त्यसको दर्ता पनि त्यही ट्याक्स पोर्टलबाट गर्न मिल्छ। दर्ता गरेपछि त कर पनि तिर्न पर्ने पो हुन्छ त। चिन्ता नगर्नुस् दिदी, कर त नाफामा तिर्ने त हो नि। अनि कम्पनी दर्ता गरेर काम गर्दा अर्को पनि फाइदा छ। यसको सञ्चालनमा लागेको सबै खर्च पनि कट्टा हुन्छ। नाफा कमायो भने कर तिर्न के गाह्रो भएर? त्यसमा पनि महिला लघु उद्यमीहरूलाई त दर्ता गरेको 10 वर्षसम्म व्यवसायबाट भएको आयकरमा 100% छुट छ। ओहो, यो त निकै राम्रो कुरा सुनायो त। म अब तत्कालै आवश्यक कागजपत्र तयार पार्छु दर्ता गर्नलाई। बहिनीले त निकै धेरै जानकारी दिनुभयो। धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद है। तपाईलाई अरु केही जानकारी चाहिए अप्ठ्यारो नमानिकन मलाई सम्पर्क गर्नु होला नि।
Thank you. Thank you, Diksha, for that short video, but very much filled with the required information. So we now open the floor for questions and answers or any concerns that you may have that you would want to direct to our three panelists before we move on. If you would like to share the questions, please identify yourself and put the question directly to the person. Kindly raise your hands. Okay, it's difficult to break the ice, but we also have here with us Mr. Saurav Kumar, who is the fellow at COTS International. Maybe I can start by requesting him to share if he has found anything that is different from the findings on the impact of the COVID on women entrepreneurs in Nepal, because I know that he has been there doing such kind of impact studies for Bangladesh, Bhutan, and India as well.
Thank you, Mona ji. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. First of all, on behalf of COTS International, I would like to thank Sati and Diksha for this wonderful presentation, as well as I thank all the participants to give their time for this important webinar. We, as Diksha said, we are implementing this project with the support of UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. In Nepal, we are collaborating with SOTI. In Bhutan, we are collaborating with Bhutan Media and Communication Institute, while in Bangladesh, we have Bangladesh Women Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So once the lockdown hit this region, we thought that it is better to collect the view of women entrepreneurs about how COVID-19 pandemic has affected their business, their sales revenues, and etc. What are the challenges they are now facing, and if they are getting any kind of support. So the challenges or the problems are almost similar to Nepal. For example, in Bangladesh, we found that around 63% women-owned MSMEs were severely affected, while 33% were affected moderately. 93% said that there was no women-specific program or scheme to support them. But there is a positive news also. 93% of women entrepreneurs said that they have got a benefit from the digital advancements and selling their products through digital platforms. Similarly, in India, we have found that around 79% respondent reported decline in sales and revenues, and around 80% did get government loans or loans from the financial formal sector. Similarly, around 63% said that there was inadequate cash reserve for their monthly operations, and 2/3 of the women entrepreneurs use their personal savings to operate their businesses. So these are the major challenges that those women entrepreneurs face in these countries. And with regard to the point related to government intervention, I am completely agree with Shobha ji and Rita ji that there is a need for collaborative approach not only within the country, within the organization, but also within the region. At the same time, it is also important to highlight the role of media. We have to put forward our research findings and data in public domain through media, so that government can be pressurized to support the women entrepreneurs. Similarly, there is a need to target the parliamentarians, particularly those parliamentarians who have better understanding of industrial and economic policies, and those who have a very sympathetic views about gender inclusiveness in economy. So these are my observations. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you, Saurabh, for sharing that. We also have participants from Bangladesh and Bhutan here. I see a hand here from Mr. Stephen Biggs. Biggs, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for a very interesting session. I have a couple of questions. One is whether any surveys or part of the Saudi survey, you had brought together lessons about how poorer entrepreneurs had actually managed to manage the situation well, and therefore there would be lessons coming out of how they've managed to do that. The second question is to Dr. Bakir about the bank. How does the bank in itself and in other banks in Nepal encourage research into how to come up with new products which are going to be relevant and suitable to the circumstances of poorer rural women entrepreneurs? Because that is a phenomenal challenge. Therefore, the bank or its subsidiary, other banks, need to have a capacity in-house to explore how to do their job effectively in a very challenging situation. So my question is, if he could tell us a little bit about the research capability within his bank and what he encourages as regards experimenting.
I think your voice is breaking here.
I
finished. Can you just... Okay. Okay, I think we get what you're saying. Thank you. We'll take a couple more questions. I can see that one question is for Rita ji and the other for Dr. Bhatta. But if there is anything else, any other questions? Okay, so perhaps Dr. Bhatta, would you like to respond to Mr. Big's question?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the excellent observation. That's an excellent question or suggestion, I think. So the banking community in Nepal, through various schemes that the central bank has enforced, they have been catering services to the women entrepreneurs. As I have already mentioned, there are subsidized lending facilities, deprived lending facility, some other, the loan schemes that are targeted to women and marginalized people. But through the annual review of the monetary policy, we can think on these, the spheres, how we can broaden the financial access to women. And the banking community in Nepal, they are also curious. They have the, the eager to expand that facility. So at the outset, at this point of time, I cannot give you the precise information on how new products will be designed. But in the subsequent time periods, with the collaboration with different stakeholders and after consultation with the stakeholders, we can think on this, and we can also conduct a survey. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. There was the other question that Mr. Biggs had on the lessons learned and what could be some of the ways that women entrepreneurs experienced in this pandemic. So maybe Rita ji and Shobha ji could say in a few words, because they themselves are women entrepreneurs who have survived and are still coping with this pandemic. Rita ji? Rita ji?
Can you repeat the question again?
My question is especially about the Saudi survey of how you have found where poorer, especially, I'm interested in poorer women entrepreneurs, how the ones who have survived well and managed this pandemic, what lessons can we learn from those cases?
Okay, thank you for your question. Yeah, I think one is, of course, during the pandemic, of course, we were really stressed out because everything, because of especially of the lockdown, because the businesses had come to a standstill. But with the easing of the lockdown, and of course with our motivational talks and with our, trainings, different kind of trainings, and our mentoring, counseling session, women, especially, who were in the businesses, also diversified, they were manufacturing essential items like masks, and even some of the women were making soaps, whatever is in the demand, in the market. So I think that made us survive and then recover. And of course, again, we had given recommendations and suggestions to the government on the stimulus and relief packages, where we demanded that government should give us working capital loans and even subsidized interest rate loans for us to recover and then to revive, the businesses. I think that made the women, really survive in these difficult times. And of course now, because the lockdown is easing out now, and especially with the vaccine now, I think we are doing well, so to say.
Thank you, Ritaji. And Shobaji, would you like to add a few words? Just 1 minute or so. Thank you.
Yeah, as Rita ji said, same thing I have observed also. But it was really difficult for the women entrepreneurs, especially because the women entrepreneurs are leading business, very small business. That's why, especially the food products like bakeries, dairies, this kind of industries where has to be more impacted. So after this is also lesson learned for the women entrepreneurs as well, because these kind of things can come in life. So we have to be prepared. We have to be motivated by ourselves, So that is the thing. And another thing is we have already told that the government has done so many, they have addressed, they have given subsidized in loans for the women entrepreneurs, and they are giving soft loans, which is very appreciable for the government also. So that is the thing.
Okay, thank you, Shobaji. I see one hand raised by Darshanaji. Darshanaji, your question, please. In a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mona. I have a few questions to Mr. Bhatta. So as a as a FIN member, we have been working a lot in regard of advocacy for access to finance. So we have been getting lots of recommendations and questions from different provinces. So I have 3 questions here. So number one, while talking about access of finance, and government has very good subsidies, loans to women, but when we go to the women, they say that they cannot get those loans because the banks ask for collaterals. And it is even harder for the single women. So is there any inclusive program for the women who are single and to get the loans from the banks? And how come they ask for the collaterals when the government's policy has the loans without collateral? So second is, when they go to the banks are not that easy for women to ask for the loans because they need to have more gender friendly environment in the banks. So could the central bank give directions to the bank where the banks can have women friendly decks, where more women can go and avail the banks that have been provided as the subsidies loans to women? So that will help more women to get those loans. So as a businesswoman and representing the big organization FWIN, we would like to request the central government to give the directions to different banks to have a simple platform, a DEX, where they can give services to women to avail these kinds of loans. And number 3 is the recommendation is about the documentation process. Women are all small and medium entrepreneurs, and when we have to talk about women entrepreneurs, they cater all over Nepal, from rural to urban. So documentation process is having obstacles for them to complete to avail the funds, even though they are doing very well businesses. So we found that if the central bank gives the direction to all the banks to make it more simpler, to understand by all the women entrepreneurs to get the loans. So could that be possible? That's my genuine question to the central bank speaker.
Thank you, Darshanaji. Dr. Bhatta,
Thank you, Darshana madam, for your suggestions. I don't think I can directly respond your question at this point of time, but they are valid questions, and I take these questions as suggestions, and I'll forward to the concerned department and to higher management. I fully agree with you. At my home also there is absolute majority, 75% majority, where women entrepreneurial ecosystem should be developed, and that I agree with you. And I have been, pleading for these rights as well as the exercises. Whatever the options they should be given to prioritize the women's in enhancing their skills and entrepreneurship. So I will take these questions as suggestions and I will forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatta. We have so far, taken stock and suggested how we can work towards recovery better, more inclusive and in a holistic manner. Let's move ahead. We know that the marginalized women businesses are often those who are left behind. And in Nepali, we say pachi pareka, due to the socioeconomic conditions, and those who are made to be left behind, which we also say as pachi parieka, because of discriminatory, structural, and patriarchal or practical barriers. And they include women with disabilities, indigenous women, and also those in the informal sector, such as the home-based workers, to name a few. And I think we are very we are very fortunate to have with us our final speaker, Ms. Chandni Joshi, who will be delivering her special remarks. Let me quickly introduce you to her, although she needs no introduction. Ms. Joshi is gender rights and policy specialist with over 52 years of experience. In her initial years, she served as the Joint Secretary as well as the Chief of Department Programs for the Government of Nepal. During her tenure, she initiated the pioneering PCRW program that gave the rural women in Nepal access to a production credit. She has also contributed immensely to gender-responsive budgets in the country. And in 1990, she set up the UNIFEM South Asia Regional Office and devoted 18 years to mold it into a knowledge-based organization. As the regional director, she furthered UNIFEM's development agenda by supporting innovative and experimental programs benefiting women while keeping in mind the national and the regional priorities. So over to you, madam.
Thank you, Monaji. Madam Moderator, Dr. Mona, distinguished panelists, and my dear friends from Nepal and all over South Asia. Before I delve into my presentation, I think I have a little bit, I've been very tempted after hearing the discussions to go back to 1980s when I started the production credit for rural women. Now with Dr. Bhatta here, all those reminiscences of those days, because we were the ones who started the production credit for rural women. When I say we, I mean the Rashtra Bank, the commercial banks, the government, and 14 donors. We were all together while doing it. And I was the chief of women development programs. And with Dr. Hariyar Dev Panta, the representative from Rashtra Bank. And I remember Kalyan Bikramji was the governor then. So it sounds like history. But we were talking about the same things. We were still talking about, group collateral. We were still talking about the poorest of poor women. We were talking about the priority sector program, but we were then talking about sex disaggregated data. So my question to Rashtra Bank is, you gave us so many figures, Dr. Bhatta, and I was delighted, with your talk and with your presentation. You gave us so much information, and I wish the women also had these information. So maybe we need to revive and go back to the basics and revisit these areas. Now, before I go, thank you very much, especially Mona ji. And Swati I have been very much associated with Swati since the very beginning, right from the beginning. We have been friends, of each other, supported each other all these years. And thank you very much for giving this opportunity. So there are two things I'll try to do today. One is, listening to the gist of things that came out of the study, the presentations, the deliberation, the questions. I'll try to put all that together. And I'll also look at the global factors. Like Mona introduced the International Women's Day's theme, but in the theme paper, it clearly talks about the theme celebrates the tremendous efforts of women and girls around the world in shaping the more equal future and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So it talks about three things. One is, it talks about the care burden, the unpaid care work that women had to do triple than what she used to do. And the other is the domestic violence that she had to face, which none of the studies talked about. I was very surprised, that happened. And the third thing it talks about is the corridors of power, where decisions are made. Still women are not there. So there is still disproportionate burdens that women carry. Still they are not in the corridors of power. So I think these are the gist of the theme itself. So this is globally recognized, what your study is talking about. So I really want to share. I wish I had more time, but since Mona has given me a lot of responsibilities, let me just show you. Can you see this? So, yeah. So yes. This is the study. Yeah. So this is the study we had done on home-based workers. And this was conducted in 8 countries of South Asia. We just couldn't get information from Afghanistan, but from all the 8 countries. And the sample wasn't that big either. It was about 450 sample, the sample was that. But we just wanted to see, the complexities of every country. But it was very interesting to see the findings. They looked at the findings in 4 folds. One of the findings that the women I'm talking about are not just entrepreneurs. I'm talking about the women who are at the lowest, lowest level of the pyramid. If you look at a pyramid, she's down there. She's not recognized. She doesn't have voice, visibility. She's not counted. And because she's not counted, she's neither falls, as a receiver. She doesn't receive even relief packages because she's not counted. She's not in the books. And on the other hand, she is not also, counted in the vulnerable because she's still working, from home. So she doesn't fall here or there. So she goes, between the cracks. That's what we found out. She didn't get, only the ones, whose institution was there, where the women's agencies were, they were able to get support, or the rest couldn't. And one of the findings that came out again and again is the income and work. Now, Rita ji, when she was talking, she was saying the women could not give wage. But I'm talking about the women who collect the wage, who are in the informal sector, who are not counted. So these are the home-based workers I'm talking about. And since, there was mobility, there was so much restriction, the children were at home, the husband was at home. So the care responsibility, the burden literally tripled. That is what our study says. And in the same way, the domestic violence triggered more. That is another finding. And the coping mechanisms was more like the women were able to cope, but getting the family together to cope was very difficult. So we had done this study to see what could we do as an institution, because Homeless South Asia has 900,000 members. So we wanted to see what should be done in terms of, so one thing that came out very strongly is policies. And now I'll come to, today's discussion. It's very similar now, What we see is, their voices have to be amplified. It has to be loud. The noise has to go far and wide, because gender responsive policies are very important. It's very important to get those policies in place. And by your presentation, especially Diksha's presentation, I really loved. Though the sample was very small, but she gave us a lot of information in terms of, how do you simplify? It's not only right to information, but how can that information be simplified? Even the video, you showed us, I'm very sorry to say, it has too many messages. We tend to do that. So I need to, I think we need to bisect things, make it easy, make it simple. It has so many, even I couldn't take up all those information. So let's not be in Hindi, Nepali, Urdu, we say kanjus. So when it comes to investing in women, why do we have to do everything in one? Do it fast, make it micro, make it small. Why do we do that? Let's do it with grace. Now, working with women for women is not welfare. It is being smart. If you want business to flourish, you have to be smart enough to work with women. Unless you invest, you can't reap. So it's very important, like how can you bypass 51% and just give them, 5% and be happy about it? You can't. They are 51% of the population itself. And unless that works, nothing is going to work. So one is gender responsive policies for sure. And other is right to information, but in a simplified version. I strongly feel with Rita ji, all the three presentations, Shobha ji's, Rita ji's and Diksha's presentation, it came very, and of course, Dr. Vata, I think that awareness campaign has to be there. We understood, we are about 100 of us, we understood because we are in the field, in this very field, working in development. But everyone will not understand our rhetoric. They will not understand this language. So it's very important, to have a campaign, to make different segments of it. Let's do jingles and, spots, and let's have talks, and let's do a year-long campaign. If COVID existed and blocked our way for 1 year, let's do another year's campaign. Maybe that is what we need to focus. Though Rita did talk about digital divide shouldn't happen and what they are doing, but generally digital divide is happening more. So I think that is where we should put a full stop to. And how do we make it into an opportunity? That is another area. And when we talk about skill, there's such a stereotypical patriarchal mindset about training. Whenever it comes to women and training, it's the swing knitting, cooking, achar, that's what it comes to. So I think we have to get out of it. There are so many non-traditional ways. And now we have seen women carving, we have seen women running mobile clinics, women are now doing motorcycle repairing. So let's think of more innovative. They can do anything. I think we mix up gender role and biological role. So let's put the biological role aside and just look at the other roles. She can do anything that man can do. So let's think of that and do our trainings accordingly. There is where we need transformation, and that is where we need innovation. Because unless you, again, I would love to say, unless you invest, you can't eat. And the other is access to financing. Again, this comes back again and again. This has to be simplified. And again, women have to know it's their right to get financial assistance. So how do we do it? Maybe in a campaign package, we put this together. And the other is, how do we make the private sector accountable? Because whenever we talk about anything, we talk about the government, the banks, there is where we put a full stop. But private sector is equally responsible. So how do we pen them down? How do we make them accountable? That is a strategy that we have to look at, because that is where the money is. Let's not pretend that is where the money is. Now it has to be shared. Maybe that 1% that we are talking about needs to be rethought. Maybe we should rethink that. And just 5% for women's financial training is not enough at all, looking at the demand of things. Because one thing we looked at as soon as COVID happened, I think about 2 months back, after that, we had put in a charter of demand. 3 organizations, I think we were more than 100 signatories. We had given a charter of demand to the government of Nepal, to all the 17 ministries, and it was given far and wide to the SAC Secretariat, SAC Secretary General, and to all the embassies it was sent. So that charter of demand did talk about all these 5 points. So I'm very touched, that our study talked about those 5 points accordingly. Because one thing, that scares me is whenever there is any man-made or natural disaster, the whole gender role falls aside. It's bypassed, it's shifted. If we shift it again, maybe we'll make another mistake that we did during the MDGs. Because let me remind the group that the goal 3 of MDG on gender equality was not achieved even by one country. Not even the Nordic countries could reach that. So what was that mistake? Let's not repeat it now. Let us now concentrate on SDGs. And this time, we have an expiry date. And 2030 is the expiry date. So how will we reach Planet 50/50 if we don't start adhering to it? We have already lost a year because of COVID. And now, maybe these are things we need to package together, take it together. And, let's remove all those boundaries. The bank, NGO, international organization. Let's all be together. We are a part of developing. We are responsible signatories to SDGs and all 17 goals. I'll just forget one. The 16 goals, the ocean one, I think we don't have an ocean. The rest, though that will also impact us, but all the 16 goals, we are accountable to that. We will have to reach that. And again, 50% are women, let's remember that. So I think, Mona, this was an excellent example and a lot of learning. I learned quite a lot today. Really, I could hear all different perspectives. So let us not let us not allow others to divert. Let's remind them. Let us be the watchdogs. Let's remind them, bring them back and say, this is the prime duty. We can't get it away. That reminds me, 1 year after the earthquake, in 2016, we had brought 100 women from the 14 districts and got them to talk to policy planners. We had a 3-day meeting, because whenever it's a women's meeting, it's like a day and a half, and you never get to listen to them. We bring them, we take the pains to bring them, but we tell them and send them, not listen to them. So I had said, let's learn from them. So the first day they shared, and when they shared, they were talking about their child being lost in their arms, or the sister died near her. So she was crying, we were crying. So that whole day was, just grieving, healing was that day. And second day, they started talking about, no, we can build our own house. And the third day, they said, now we can build a nation. We are the ones who will build back better. And we got them to meet all the important people, the National Reconstruction Authority people, the Home Minister himself. So they all came and talked to those 100 women. So maybe, with UK Aid, with SOTI, with so many institutions, FWIN, FNCCI, maybe we could all come together, and Homeless South Asia would very much want to be part of it. We could all come together and now we don't even have to bring the women. We could do a hybrid kind of a meeting and listen to those women, listen to them, what we are talking now. Let them listen to that, their stories. We have heard a lot of history. We have learned history. Now let's listen to her story, and let's give them that opportunity. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Chandni ji, for your inspiring, enlightening, and very thought-provoking remarks, and reminding us of our the common goals that we are all striving towards. And we could listen to you for hours and days, given your vast experience, but we are very much time constrained here. We are now at the end of our webinar, and I invite Sauti's chairman, Dr. Poshraj Pandey, to kindly deliver his closing remarks and vote of thanks. I just take half a minute to introduce him. Dr. Pandey has more than 25 years of experience working on issues of trade, economy, and development. He is a member in various committees of the government of Nepal, including the Board of Trade and the Nepal Business Forum. He has served as an economic expert in Prime Minister's Advisory Board and was a member of the National Planning Commission, which is an apex policy-making body of the government of Nepal. He holds a PhD in economics and a master's degree in business management and in economics. Over to you, Dr. Pandey.
Thank you, Dr. Mona, for your kind words. Distinguished keynote speaker, panelists, and participants. Since today's theme is gender dimension in post-pandemic recovery, so let me start with the numbers of COVID infection in Nepal. And the total infection is, as of yesterday, total infection was 274,000 and 1,301. These are the positive case. Out of that, 178,402, that is 64.9%, are male, and 96,234, that is 35.7%, are female. In addition, mortality rate for men is higher than for women. But when we are thinking about pandemic, you have to differentiate between what comes from being infected and what comes from being affected. Health pandemic affects women and men differently, and they can make gender inequality worse. Available information indicates that inequality suffered by women vis-a-vis men is relatively low in Nepal compared to other South Asian countries. Maybe a few days back, World Bank has published a report that is Women, Business and Law Index 2021, which is based in 8 indicators, particularly inequality with regard to women, that these are, 8 indicators are mobility, workplace, pay, marriage, parenthood, entrepreneurship, assets, and pension. And based on these 8 indicators, the score for Nepal was 80.6, which is the highest in South Asia. And it's interesting, which is comparable to Japan, which is 81.35, comparable to Singapore, which has 82.5, and it's quite higher than China, which has 75.6. So gender inequality in Nepal is relatively low compared to other countries. So under that situations, I mean, we are talking about, and we have been discussing on the impact of COVID or this pandemic on women entrepreneurs. I mean, there is old saying, within crisis are seeds of opportunities. That is, crisis also brings opportunities. But I think we have lost opportunity, particularly with regard to the woman entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurs. Being service oriented, smaller and less capital intense, women enterprises are able for adaptation in the changing environment than was possible for larger or more capital intensive business. In addition, during this pandemic, suppliers, customers, and employed remote models. Transactions have moved online, and B2B commerce scaled up. And all these has made entrepreneurship more accessible to women. Hence, at this point of time, what is needed is women to acquire new skills, redesign their business model, and accelerate the adaptation of technology to tide this crisis. At this point, when I say we, business organization, government, and other actors failed to provide mentorship affected women, entrepreneurs, and also to aspiring women entrepreneurs. That has our failure. And another point I just want to highlight is for reactivating woman-owned enterprises, which is highlighted by Diksha and also re-emphasized by Madam Chandni Joshi, is a lack of access to productive assets and capital. I mean, in Nepal, majority of women in rural areas and significant numbers even in urban centers do not have bank accounts or do not have access to other financial services. At this point, government and financial system, here I'm saying financial system, including central bank and other commercial and micro financial institutions, fail to bring them, I mean, women entrepreneurs who are in informal sector into formal sector. I mean, the instrument could be government would have or financial institutions would have helped them, I mean, to manage their working capital, maybe through direct access, subsidized loan, or maybe through support to wage payment and other daily expenses. I mean, from that instrument, I mean, we could have brought them into the formal sector. We could have formalized them, but we failed, I mean, those opportunities. So, I mean, for me, these are the lost opportunity, I mean, for us. But I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to adapt in post-pandemic new normal through joint efforts of business organization, government agencies, international organizations, think tank, and interested individuals, and would be able to jumpstart women entrepreneurs, formalize them, and create women enterprises and women entrepreneurs as a driver of social and economic transformations. With this note, on behalf of Sauti and personally, I thank Ms. Chandni Joshi for her special remarks, Ms. Rita Shima, Shobha Gurung, and Dr. Gunakar for bringing, for informing us the activities of the organization and also insightful thoughts on promoting women entrepreneurs. Dr. Mona Adhikari for your excellent moderation, Diksha Singh for comprehensive presentations, and finally, I would like to thank all participants for your active participations and making program lively. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Mona.
Monaji, you are muted.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Dr. Pandey, for that very interesting closing remarks as you bring together all the discussions, as well as highlight some concrete recommendations where all of us here, as well as other stakeholders, can join hands in achieving the common goals, as Madam Joshi had reminded us. Thank you once again to all the panelists, the special guests and participants for this excellent interaction. We apologize as we have taken a little bit more of your time. We hope to stay engaged, stay safe, and have a good day ahead. Namaste. Thank you.
Got it.